Hey, what's up guys? This is TBone here. Welcome back to another episode of playing Legendary Game of Heroes. So in today's episode, I wanted to talk about the cards I am using for this event, Cosmic Constriction. But I'm not actually going to be able to show you the event deck and its mechanics because I only have the support card this time around. But I've been okay without it. And so what I wanted to talk about, is sort of like the meta today. As long as you have the right killer bonus skill, it actually is going to be much better. So like it's more important now to have the right killer skill. And it actually makes it so that whether you're using Slayer cards or Commander cards or even Off Affinity cards, you're actually going to have more options now. So I'm going to be talking about those decks that I'm using. I will talk about the trap mechanic and what that really is, because this deck essentially is a trap deck, and I will talk about that using a different deck at the end of the episode, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to talk about now the decks I am using. So I'm going to start with my turn 1 deck, sort of the Light Slayer version of the deck that uses Apocalypse Hellboy as the card that gives me the attack boost, because this is an arcane killer, but because it's an older ultimate form, it gives me 400% instead of the 900% that we're used to seeing here. There's an older version of this as well, and that is going to be the Curators of Pain, which also is an ultimate form for Arcane Killer. So you can use either of those two, and they're both available in the Proving Grounds if you needed to get them. Okay, so the other cards I'm using for this particular deck, I'm using Enlightened Yokai, and then I have all of the Master Collection cards and also the ultimate form for Relentless Scholars here, so that I can passively spawn some power gems, so I can get a little bit of damage on turn 1. So the things that you're going to notice here is I basically built decks that are all turn 2 based, because I want to be able to deal more damage quicker than a trap deck that the current event deck has, because the current event deck is a 3-turn deck. So even though it's more powerful, it's a little bit slower. So the advantage you can give yourself is to build a deck that is a little bit faster, that deals less damage, but allows you to get your 15% or MVP quickly enough so that you can earn those trophies. Okay, and so we have the Bonafide Brawlers deck here that uses Circuit Break Hilaria. I actually showed how this just completely dominated in the Fire Arcane Killer event, and it still does pretty well here, although it does have some disadvantages I will talk about. And then this is a deck that worked really, really well, the Paragons of Passion. It didn't rank too high in my Ultimate Form sort of ranking in the previous season, but it's working out really well for this event because it's a Arcane Killer card. Even though it's Commander, it still does well. And then finally, I do have also the Jailor's deck from the Earth Commander event that we just had. So let's go ahead and use all of these decks in our against our bosses. And so we're going to start with the main deck here, and we're going to be using 3 keys for all of them just to sort of standardize the amount of damage that we can deal. And so this is the Slayer deck. So we're going to get 400% boost across all of our cards from the Hellboy, and we're also taking advantage of all of the power gems that we will be spawning on turn 1. And so what we're going to do is we're going to see how much damage we can do here, because this is my turn 1 deck. And so this actually is capable of dealing about 400 to 500 billion damage on turn 1 here. And, it's not a ton, but it's usually sufficient to get me, the smaller bosses. I can jump in, get some damage right away, and then come out. And if I don't get enough damage on turn 1, I can still do enough damage on turn 2, and I'm going to show you now with my own boss here. So let's go in and use this. Okay, so this is one version of it, but I think the one that I actually prefer, the version I prefer, is to swap out 1 copy of Maya, and to put in either Turia or a Transcendental Devrim. Now, Transcendental Devrim gives you more heal, etc., but it also gives you a damage boost. So I think I prefer that over Turia. So like this card will give you a little bit of a damage boost, not a ton, but it gives you any little bit helps. All right, and so let's now take a look at a second version of this. Now it's going to be a little bit weaker because we have less power gems, and in fact, because I'm doing solo bosses, I'm just going to jump in with a single key. So it's not going to be dealing, 500 billion damage on turn 1, But we can sort of see how much damage I can deal on turn 2, because this is basically a turn 2 deck, with, you know, hopes of dealing a little bit of damage that can give me 15% if I needed to. Okay, and so the way to activate this, you want to activate the Devon first, and you can just go ahead and activate everything else. Hellboy doesn't do anything because his battle skill only applies for the turn afterwards when he attacks. And so that with a single key here, I'm able to deal about 600 billion or so. So combined total damage on turn 2, I'm able to deal approximately 800 billion. So this is a really reasonable, damage output for a single key. Close to 1 trillion, a single key generally is going to be sufficient for most situations, especially earlier on in the event. Okay, and now let's take a look at what happens if we use Circuit Breaker Lariat, or actually the Brawlers, the Bonafide Brawlers. So here's the thing, we don't have the affinity bonus, so we're losing 10 times damage, but we do have the 900% damage boost from the killer skill for Arcane Killer bonus, and we still have the Slayer bonus here. We have, the 6 times Slayer bonus for the ultimate form, and then 5 times for the Master Collection card and the Ultra Rare card, and we're getting a guaranteed 2000% damage boost from Circuit Breaker Hilaria on turn 2. Now, the disadvantage of this deck is that basically every card in this deck heals. And because of that, it is really weak to Toxin. And this week's bosses, half of them will cast Toxin. Okay, half of them will cast Toxin, the other half casts Thorn. And so if you get hit by Toxin, then you cannot go further than turn 2. But that's okay, because we're able to actually deal about, we're able to deal over 2 trillion on 3 keys here. So, in general, this is sort of a deck that if we had a Toxin Dispel, or if we're up against a boss that doesn't have Toxin, then this could be used longer. The longer this deck goes, the more powerful it becomes. Okay, and so as long as you can use this against a boss that doesn't have Toxin, then you can actually use it for longer. But generally, we want to focus on a 2-turn deck anyway. And now let's go ahead and talk about our Paragon of Passion, and I'm actually going to use this opportunity to also summon a lucky boss. So the way you summon a lucky boss is you go to event store, and then you use gold to summon it. It actually increases in cost every time you summon it, but you can only summon up to 3 per day anyway. And so we're going to go ahead and use this deck now. Now, this is a pure commander deck, but it is a light deck that has Arcane Killer bonus, so we're getting 900% bonus, and we have the 10 times affinity damage against bosses as well. And this deck has a nice ability where the ultimate form will have a attack boost as well as the ultra rare. Okay, so all of these cards will have attack boost. Now remember, when we played it, the order in which you activate these cards actually matter. So we're going to activate the ultra rare card and the ultimate form last. And now the secret to taking out the lucky boss here is after your first attack, you want to make sure that you don't actually do any more matches. So as much as you can, you want to avoid getting your light match. And you can see I have just a sliver of health remaining. And that's all I needed, because I just needed to survive 4 turns to be able to take out, to be able to wait for my battle skill to come on again. And now with my killer skill added, and also with my basically additional stacks of damage boost, I'm actually going to be able to deal enough damage on the second attack to completely take out the boss. Okay, and so with this deck, I'm able to deal over 34 trillion in 6 turns, because of the fact that it has the right killer bonus. And this is a commander deck. So even though it didn't rate too high for me in the previous season, this deck is actually turning out to work really well in this event. In fact, I use it also pretty often against my solo bosses, because if I knew that I can get a second turn in, I can actually jump in here. So let's just take a risk here and see if we can jump in with a single key. Looks like we couldn't. What I've noticed that earlier in this event is that I actually generally see quite a few bosses that are just kind of sitting there that don't get taken out. And so let's jump in. Let's see if we can get our turn 2 damage in here. I guess I probably jumped in a little bit late there. Let's just see if we can. Then we'll jump into a solo boss. But usually, what I've seen is for me, I could jump into a boss pretty easily and able to deal some damage. But let's just go in on a guild boss at this point. So here it is. We're gonna go turn 1. We're going to actually do 1 key here because we saw how much damage you can deal with 3 keys. Now I'm going to show you how this works with a single key and how much damage it can actually deal, so that if you can jump into any solo bosses and you have the ability to actually use a key to turn 2, let's see how much damage this does. Okay, and so this is what I'm talking about. Like, even though this is a commander deck, the fact is now the killer skill being so high at 900%, it really sort of offsets a little bit. And so if you can actually get a deck that can give you a lot of power gems, that can give you a turn 2 damage, then that's actually going to be better than using a Slayer deck that's sort of cobbled together that can't quite do as much damage. So if you see here, it deals over 2 trillion on its own in a single key, well above the amount of damage that our Light Slayer deck did. Okay, and so you can just see, like, whereas before I would have really said you should always go for Slayer decks because of the Slayer bonus and the Ultimate Killer bonus and all of that things combined. Well, the fact is, if you can only get 400% damage boost out of that, it's actually better than for you to simply go with a deck that can give you 900% boost. Okay, so you can see that there is a big difference there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use our final deck here, and that uses the Jailor. So Jailors is another deck that gives you a lot of damage boost. So this card will give you 1200% damage boost every time you delay. Okay, so let's jump in. We'll use 3 keys here. Now, this is with 900% damage boost, but it doesn't have the affinity bonus. So it's going to deal a lot less damage, but let's see how much we're able to do with this setup because of all of the damage boost that we're going to get. And I have in here Hard Won Gorillas, which is also an arcane killer type card, and it will also be able to deal 5 times nuke damage the following turn. And so let's take a look here. So we aren't able to quite, fill out the board right away, but we get close. And so with this particular setup, and you can see here, the Hard Won Gorillas deals 1.6 trillion on its own, and total damage for 3 keys here is, 3.3, almost 3.5 trillion. But keep in mind that we're able to deal another 5 times the damage from the Hard Won Gorillas for about another 8 trillion afterwards. And this is not even against a deck that has the strong affinity against. Now, there's another way to play this deck too, if you remember from before, where you actually want to lose all of your health, right? And so another option that you could do here is, last time when I played it, I actually used the Defiant Duet as a deck that as the leader, so that I can die quicker. But if you're going up against a really strong boss, you probably don't want to just wait until you die. But when you do actually eventually get to a point where what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show you with a single key how much damage you can do. That's actually probably gonna be better because I will not be able to survive longer. But as soon as I lose all of my health, remember that I actually get a free revive, and every time I revive, I get a turn delay. And whenever I turn delay, I'm increasing the amount of damage that my arcane killers are going to deal. And it's a big deal now with all of those boosts. You can now really increase the Hard Won Gorillas damage really fast. So let's go ahead and just wait until we actually get hit and lose all of our health. But because I'm only up against a regular guild boss, it's taking a little bit longer. But let's just wait until we actually lose all of our health here. And so we're going to have to wait a few turns, probably get hit 2 more times total. So the next time we get hit, we should be fine. So let's just go ahead and do our gem match here. So this would work well against, a bigger boss that deals more damage, for example. But I just wanted to sort of show you how this works. So now we're going to lose all of our health. And now we're going to get, 3 additional boosts. Plus, basically we're doubling the amount of boost we have, and I'm going to also activate, hard one gorillas here. I want to keep a hard one gorillas here because I want to get, the Slayer boost here. And you can see single card, one key with the revival bonus. I'm able to deal similar amount of damage here, right, over 2 trillion because I doubled up on my damage there. And so that really sort of made up for that difference. And so these are the deck options I have. Like, I'm not using the current event deck at all, but I'm just taking advantage of the fact that I'm using the killer bonus to my advantage, okay? And so to me, I think that the meta really is transitioning to the commander decks are now more important because commander decks that are good can now be used in a Slayer event better, whereas a good Slayer deck generally can't really give you the overkill bonus. In my opinion, like, I feel like what I've seen is that a commander deck that can give you the ultra kill bonus is probably going to be better for Slayer event now. I'm seeing it to translate a little bit sort of reverse now compared to how I used to sort of recommend them. But I think that, that's just kind of sort of like how things are going right now. Really, it's just about the killer boost, and the fact that you can get killer skill now to 900% is really going to be key. All right, so before I sign off, I'm going to show you how trap decks work. And the trap deck is pretty simple to think about. All you have to really realize is that a trap deck really just means you activate your skills and then nothing will happen until the following turn. And so in this particular case, I'm bringing in the Unbreakable Sisterhood, which is a trap deck type. And the ultra rare card in Frenzy Fury is also a trap card. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use turn 1 to fill up all of the battle skills. Then on turn 2, I'm going to activate the 2 cards that have the trap. So you can see nothing actually happened here. I didn't see, like there's no power gems or anything like that, but now I'm going to get hit. And as soon as I get hit, suddenly all of these power gems get spawned. And now I can go ahead and activate other cards that I have in here that will automatically create power gems when I activate them. And now I can go ahead and deal my damage. But this is a turn 3 deck damage. So you can see here, and I think I used 1 key here. So, it's just that, I didn't have killer skill, that's why I didn't deal as much damage. But you can see how the mechanic actually works here, right? So the mechanic is you wait until the 3rd turn before all of your power gems will appear, and then you can deal damage. So it's actually going to be slower than a lot of the decks that I've shown you. So the goal that I had was to build a quicker deck. Whether it's using the right affinity or not, it didn't matter as long as I have the right killer skill. It gave me the damage boost. So if you have any of these decks that are at your disposal, I encourage you to try them out, especially if you don't have the current event deck, because I think that you can do just fine even without the current deck, because we're taking advantage of killer bonus and the fact that we can get a quick damage compared to this event deck, which is a little bit slower. All right, so hopefully this video has been helpful for you. Let me know, comment down below if there's any other ideas that you're running, and also if if you're trying them out, let me know how it works. Comment down and give me feedback. All right, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.